now it's just reinstall. Okay, so there's another tricky bit here. This AC compressor sits on a bracket. The AC compressor needs to be exactly aligned perpendicular to the auxiliary belt, and to do so there is actually another jig that you need to use to align it properly. To use it, you have to install the decoupler pulley first, so we're going to do that next. This here is a maintenance. Eventually it does need to be replaced. I've replaced it once before, so I'm not about to get another one. If you're doing this at around anywhere over 120,000 miles, replace this thing, just because it's, as you can see, it's a lot of work to get back in here. So that would be my recommendation. Don't lose the bolt. To reinstall, slip it on. Use the tool. Put that bolt in. The bolt needs to be tightened to 60 Newton meter. There, adjustable wrench or 22 millimeter wrench. You can just rest it right up against the top of the transmission. I need my bigger torque wrench. Here's the setup. 22 millimeter wrench resting up against the engine. Fair amount. Turns nicely. But if you're looking for a specific code, mine is OEM tool 27261. It's a very simple tool, it's a very simple set. Doesn't come with that many attachments. This attachment I got in a different decoupler tool set, and as you can see, it's kind of handy because it gives you 1/2 inch to whatever that is, hex. 27261. If you're in the Toronto area, you don't have this, feel free to borrow it from me. Once you've installed that, you need to install the cap, which I think can just snap in. I don't know. It's awkward to get in here. Let's see, let's put it in that side. There we go. Get in there. I think I got it. Looks good. Here's the bracket. You need to reinstall this without reinstalling the tensioner. Don't lose this little washer which fits under the tool here. Washer should face upwards. Ouch. Slide that on like that. You really have to jack up the AC compressor high enough to get this in.
I'm needlessly struggling here to put this bracket in, and it's because to the left of my left hand there is a second bracket that hangs vertically upwards from the front of the engine. There are some bolts on that that need to be loosened also, and that will make more room for maneuvering in the top bracket that you see me handling here. You'll see me loosening this bracket later on in the video, but do it now. And it's the bracket I'm touching right now with both hands. It has a couple of bolts on it. It's easy enough to loosen them up. You don't even have to take the bolts off. Just loosen them up, and that allows that top bracket to fit in nicely, and then the whole thing gets tightened up together once that jig is in place to ensure alignment.
Okay. Especially tricky because you need to get, there's an opening right there, and it needs to fit in this little rubber washer here. This little rubber washer right here needs to fit inside here. So I'm gonna have to rejig until everything comes together nicely. But you can see it's a relatively tight fit in here. Don't tighten anything just yet. So I'm going to take this bolt all together, push it up anyway. So push that center bolt up all the way, then align this area, and then the screw should go back in. Okay, so I've got it in.
What the instructions
Good.
suggest to do next is to tighten each of the bolts by hand before installing the jig and performing the alignment.
Getting that bolt down there in is difficult. Let's work on this bolt some more. The reason it's so difficult is it's bottomed out against the... You can see that bolt is bottomed out against some electrical harnesses, so I'm spinning it in by hand, and then I'll put the 10 millimeter ratcheting wrench back in. So you've got this bolt, this one here, this one in the center, and then this one up top here, 4. I think that's it. That's good. These two, loosely. This one, again, loose. Okay. Okay. Bottom one. Good.
I considered taking this footage out altogether, but it's important to understand how painful this task can be if you don't loosen that leftmost bracket first, because you just won't be able to align the tool. The way this tool works is you tighten the tool around the decoupler pulley first, and then you try to align you must align the 2 pins to fit right over top of the AC compressor bracket. And I'm just not able to do this right now because there's not enough, I'm not able to get enough maneuvering room because that bottom bracket is still on tight.
Be sure it sits exactly right on the coupler pulley. There we go. Interesting. Okay. Is to squeeze properly on the decoupler pulley first before you do anything else. Take the 17, 19, take the 19 mil, squeeze it if you want to a little bit. There we go. It's on there. Oops. Okay. Now, the AC bracket somehow needs to rotate backwards and into that. I'd say loosen this up considerably. Loosen the bottom one up, I think.
Here I keep thinking that just loosening up the bolts a little bit on the top bracket will do the trick. I still haven't figured out that all I have to do is loosen that left bracket and it'll all come together.
You want to be triply sure that that tool fits nicely, tightly into that decoupler pulley. You can see it just sits. It's hard to see from here, but it's in there tight, and the two pieces do come together pretty tightly. And what you want to do here is you want to be looking at this, you want to be looking at this, and you want it to align. So right now, I got some work to do. I was trying to get away with not having to take the bottom bolts off of this, but it looks like, so there's 1, 2, 3, and then there's a couple more down below. So you have to loosen those to get at this. I'll show you what I mean down below. Down below here, this here, oh boy, it's hard to tell. You can see a bracket. There's one bolt here, one bolt there, and I think that might be it. Loosen the two bottom bolts on this bracket, so I got a lot more movement here. Let's see if that helps me get proper orientation on this thing. There we go. Yeah, get that in there. Got it snapped into place. Let's get one of those guide pins in. Good. Jig is in. Both guide pins are in. So now there are specific instructions to follow and a sequence to follow in tightening each of these bolts. Be a chore. Check. Check. By the way, those bolts on the bottom, they were 13, not 14. Okay. tightened, tightened. And lower bracket. 1, 2, 3. Compressor bracket still firmly in place. Check. Tighten the center bolt of the top bracket to 50 Newton meter, which is 38 foot-pounds. Not really supposed to use an extension, but anyway. .37 Newton meter, check. So the second step is to torque this to 50 Newton meter, which is again 37 foot-pounds. Okay, so next step is to tighten these two bolts to 18 foot-pounds. Foot-pound. 18 foot-pound is not much. Can I do it? Yes. Okay, just tighten. There we go. Now I got to tighten the bottom two under the engine to 50 Newton meters. Two bolts under the engine to 37 foot-pounds. There we go. One. There we go. Last one here to 24 Newton meter. Should be interesting. 18 foot-pounds. How can I get in there? It's enough. 18 foot-pounds is... That's good. So, brackets all tightened up. I'm going to put this electrical harness back on. Okay. Next step. Now that we've got that reinstalled, you need to take this jig off and reinstall the tensioner. Let's do that next. To loosen this back up. Voila. Lift this up. Should be able to stick a flathead in there. Separate the jig. There we go. The notch sits in the notch right here. You have to install the power steering pump next so that you can get the belt in behind it before doing anything else. First step, on the spring. Spring faces outwards and plunks into there. I need to get this through first. Get the belt in first. All the way through. Okay. This thing. This faces the water pump, and the pin goes into, the spring goes into, wow, it's really difficult to tell. The little hole just, where's my finger? A little hole just next to this metal plate here is where that spring fits into, right there. And then you're going to take this replacement pin, plastic pin, long part goes into the power steering, the long part goes into the power steering pump, and it just clicks in there. That should be replaced each time, apparently. Sure is.
So I guess we just have to go in.
Yep.
Alright.
You'll be able to tell where it goes because it sits nicely in a notch. You can see right there, the spring sits nicely in the notch there. Really hard to tell. Right there. Okay, so now that that spring assembly's in, I'm gonna put plastic thingy in here, which is quite challenging. Don't lose this. Just snaps into place, and then that's what allows you to marry all this stuff up. Okay. Wow, that was hard. Take the T25 now. Trick is to get the spring on the engine first, aligning the pin into the water pump, and then coupling the pulley on to it. Hope I don't have to do this again. What a nuisance. All right, so 2 T25 bolts into the gear itself. One. One. Two. Is that? No, it's not the right hole, is it? That's right. Two. It's good. So you got the power steering pump. Hopefully the pulley is such that I can, there we go, good. Tensioner, so this goes through here like this, through here like this, up above the tensioner goes down like that. Just did this, why can't I do it again? But okay, one thing you want to do before you do that is make sure that the belt is also around the coupler. It is not yet. So let's see if I can do that. No. Let's take the tensioner out. Just move it out of the way. Move the belt under the coupler. There, you're good. Tensioner back. That. And it goes around like that. I think that's right. Okay, before you go any further here, it's important. You want to make sure the belt routing is correct. Under the pulley, over the tensioner, under the coupler. Make sure the tensioner is tightened. So go get the bolt for the tensioner, which is right here. Put that in there like that. Tensioner bolt is on. Here. And I'm guessing that's another 24-ish Newton meter job. Doesn't feel tight enough. That's pretty tight. That's pretty tight. All right, good. Tensioner's on, belt is routed okay under the decoupler pulley. We're ready to put the compressor back on. Belt on properly. Try, Lynn. Try, man. Get in there. That's better. Okay. There. There we go. Okay. Good. 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 2 long bolts. Just want to make sure. I think they would go here. Here. Make sure it's sitting nicely. It is. Let's do that one. It is. Now that you've got that, nice. So I've got my compressor back on. I've tightened 1, 2, 3 bolts. I think that's it. And now what I'm going to do is tighten up the power steering pump so that we can then release the tension on the tensioner. Power steering pump, add 1 here. one way back here. That's one, and there's another one here. Where's that one? These are 10 mil.
Apologies for the crappy footage here, but effectively what I'm doing is putting the 3 bolts in and then going back and tightening them just to make sure that the power steering pump sits where it should.
Okay. So now that I got power steering pump on, actually I need to put that damn bracket on. So where's that bracket? There it is. Bracket. Kind of like, is that it? Yeah, like that. All right, there. Okay. The other bolt. Down below. And there is my least favorite spot to go into. This fucking thing. Okay, I'm ready to take the 19mm wrench, put the pressure back on the tensioner. There's my 19, it's right here. Put the 19 right here. Push downwards a little bit, pull that out, and you've got nice tension. Just back. There's that little thing, breather. If you unfasten this breather while you were screwing it in, just make sure it's snapped back into place. How do you do this? It's good. It's just a transmission breather. Okay, next step is to put all these covers back on and do that in the right order. I think it means put this on first. Put that. Oops. 10.